I remember taking an Excel class back in college, Excel being one of the most simplest databases that you can work with, watching the instructor manipulate the data and insert formulas and then assign all of these things to their students. I still remember thinking, this is so lame. Why would I ever have to do this? I think I ended up dropping the class. Context is everything, right? Because nowadays I'm like, oh, Excel is so amazing. There's so much you can do with it. That's really what I think of when I think of somebody being a database administrator. In the AWS SysOps series, we're not about building database administrators. We're more about setting up somebody who can support the infrastructure the database administrators use. That's what we're here to do in understanding RDS Foundations. When I first got into technology, I loved building my own computers. Ordering all the parts, putting it together, installing the operating system. It's just fun and a lot cheaper than buying a pre-built one from a manufacturer. These days, not so much. And not only is it not cheaper, but it just takes time that I don't have. And that's Amazon's perspective with RDS. Essentially, they're saying, well, you could go and spin up some EC2 instances, pick an operating system, install whatever database software you want on top of that, and configure it and make sure that it's redundant and scheduled for backups and all that kind of stuff. Or we can do it for you. That's really the Amazon vision with so much stuff, right? So with RDS, you go into a specific area of the management console, click a couple buttons, and you are actually launching EC2 instances, but they're all pre-configured and managed by Amazon. They'll take care of all the patches and upgrades in specified maintenance windows for you. They'll take care of all of the backups and let you pick, even during the initialization. I'm going to show this to you in just a second. It'll make a lot of this clear. They'll set up automated backups for you. Again, stuff that you would typically have to buy software for and figure it out and support and all this kind of thing. Again, it just makes a lot of the administrative tasks of database management automated. It's also compatible with your existing management tools. And what I mean by that is it presents itself to your DBAs as just a MySQL interface or Oracle interface. So all of the tools and all of the ways that they normally interface with the database, they do the same thing. In the Amazon world, it's just most of the time it'll be running from an EC2 instance that they're accessing remotely rather than the server sitting in your room going whoo and eating up electricity. They have, as you know what? Now, let me explain this, and then I will show you what it looks like to build one of these. They have multi-availability zone deployment options, and that sets you up for redundancy and high availability to where, essentially, you remember, we've got our regions, we've got the availability zones inside of there, so just by a couple clicks of a wizard, again, you're not spinning up the EC2 instances, they're spinning them up for you and setting them up for redundancy to where you have replicas in each one of these regions, and they're set up for high availability and redundancy. What I mean by that is when they take one down for a patch or an upgrade, maybe it takes half an hour. It's part of Amazon's automated process. They don't literally have a guy doing it. They automate everything that they do. And so as this one goes down, maybe that's your read-write replica for the database. And this one goes ahead and promotes itself to the primary. And now this one is the one that takes all the traffic while this one's down for maintenance. And again, it's all happening behind the scenes. You don't really have to think about it. It just does it. This is one of those things that just once you see it, it's going to make a lot more sense. So take a look over here. Our database, we've got RDS, and here's all the flavors. Ooh, I forgot to mention Amazon Aura. This one right here, currently in beta mode, as in I don't have access to it because it's on a limited preview basis. It is Amazon's tweaked version of MySQL. They've essentially gone through, gutted it, tweaked it, tuned it, whatever they've done, but they've made it insane to where it's super self-healing, where it can actually handle storage failures and come back from it. It has near synchronous replication to where the database servers will be in sync within about 10 milliseconds, which is just, I mean, it's insane, right? Amazon's kind of creating their own little world out there. So I come over here to RDS. That's what Aura is all about. And since I don't have any relational databases running, it's going to give me this wizard like most things in Amazon will do if you haven't previously started. I just like going straight to the instances. I'm going to say, give me a database instance. Right here, I choose my flavor. I've got MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, SQL Server. So I've got, let's go with MySQL because it's free. But know that when you go through these different versions, it does include some level of licensing for Microsoft or Oracle because those are not free databases. So I'll choose the free one. Now, right up front, they asked me the question, do you want to use a multi-availability zone deployment? Or I love how they word this question. No, this instance is intended for use outside of production or under the free tier. So essentially, they're like, you're crazy if you don't do this. And the question is, why if I don't use multi-availability zone deployment? Well, because you'll see when we set this up, they let you set maintenance windows where they're just going to tear down your database on the fly to do maintenance. And they're assuming that you have redundant servers running out there that will take over this. So if you go out there and say, I'm not going to do that, then they're going to say, well, there's going to be times where it just goes down when we patch your servers using our automated methods, right? So be smart. Choose yes. So choose next. It says MySQL, what kind of license? Now, there's only one license since MySQL is open source. Get to choose your version of the database. Some people have specific reasons they like a version, whether it's a feature or its compatibility or something. Then down here you've got your instance class. What kind of server do you want to run this on? Now, based on the server that you choose, you'll see actually different options appear. For instance, like if I choose these two T2 models, right now Amazon is saying, hey, those are only in a VPC. So if you want to use those, you have to create a VPC, which most of you should be using VPC because eventually all of them will do that. It's going to be a requirement because EC2 Classic, it's no secret, is going away. So I'll just choose this guy right here. We'll use a medium instance. Do you want to do multiple availability zones? Sure, I'll do that and have redundancy built in there. Storage type. Now, keep in mind, each one of these, as I'm like, cha-ching, 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 each one of these impacts your price just like your storage type. Magnetic, provisioned IOPS, general purpose, same thing as your typical EC2 instance, but that will directly impact your performance. And it's letting you know, hey, if you choose storage less than 100 gigabytes, then you may end up with some issues because essentially your storage is used for caching, it's used for all kinds of things, and if you have it provisioned too thin, well, not only is it going to be a storage limitation, but also the amount of storage that you choose impacts the level of provision performance that you'll get. So they're just saying, hey, FYI, if you go less than this, you may run into some performance issues. Okay, down below. What is your database instance identifier? So when you create RDS, you're going to have an instance name that identifies all of the databases that you create under this set of servers, right? So we'll just I'll throw in a very technical name, right? What is your master username? And again, we'll use traditional tools to interface with this database. So this will be, when you say what is the master username, this will be what your database administrators use to connect in and create the databases underneath here. Now, going back to my very opening slide, when you're thinking about databases, I mean, like an Excel workbook, if you're not somebody who's privy to databases, an Excel workbook, like we're seeing right here, is like the database. Oh, I shook it, and Windows 7 minimized everything. This is like the database. And then inside of here, you've got your tables, which are kind of like database tables, right? Inside of your workbook. And then you've got your individual cells, which represents the data that's in there. That's kind of the same thing when we're looking at right here, the database settings that we've got. We can create a database, kind of like an Excel workbook. Master username essentially will be the account that we create to do that. But you can create other users in this RDS structure that you can use to manage and interface with the databases. Again, getting too deep into DBA stuff. More on the administration side is what the AWS SysOps series is for. So network and security, this is where you can set up your security groups of who can access this database. And then they say, okay, do you want to create your first database? And they're saying, hey, if you don't, then if no database name is special, then no initial MySQL database will be created. So I'll put something in there just so it creates a database that I have by default. You know, you have your options for the database. Then we have our backup and maintenance windows. So backup is going to say when do you want your backup to run? Now, if you choose no preference, keep in mind, Amazon will schedule automated backups unless you drop this backup retention period to 0. Once you do this, it's going to say, okay, I'm not going to back up your data, or you can say, I want to retain the last 25 backups, or whatever retention you want. Again, all it is storage, and that storage is going to cost you money, but outside of that, backups are valuable, right? So choose a window, and this will say, when do you want to have a start time? Now, there is a lot of confusion on, okay, if I say my start time is, for instance, let's just say 3 in the morning, UTC. What is this duration? Is that how long the backup runs for? And there's no real clean explanation in the documentation. What the duration means is essentially, what window do you want to run your backup in? Now, eventually, these options will go away. Because Amazon has said, you know what, we've honed our systems down to the point where we will start the backup within a half hour of your start time. So it behooves you nothing other than having a random start time, to pick a duration outside of a half hour. What this means is I will start a backup around 3 o'clock, essentially within a half hour of that. So somewhere between 3 and 3:30, and I'll tell you from experience, it's going to be pretty close to 3, they're going to start your backup. This is not how long does the backup run for, because that duration can be really deceiving. This is what window, or essentially within this 3 o'clock time frame, give me about a half hour buffer before I'm going to start your backup, right? Maintenance, same thing. Do you want to do minor version upgrades? Sure, yes, I'll patch my system, or no, I don't want to do the minor upgrades. I'll only do the major versions as they come out. And then right here, maintenance window, same thing as the backup. When do you want to do your patches, your updates to the MySQL database? So you set that, and voila. We're launching the database instance. So what it's doing right now behind the scenes is we now have this ASDF instance that's spinning up multiple servers in multiple data centers. And it's just amazing for me to look at this. I'm like, how much time did someone at Amazon or what team spent scripting this process to be this honed that it can go out there, spin up multiple servers, set up the MySQL database, create the databases. Again, I can see how they're all doing it, and I'm like, oh, I want to just sit behind the scenes with Amazon and watch them to automate the system. But that's really all that's happening, is multiple server instances are being created. Takes about 10, 15 minutes, and you will have before yourself multiple databases that you can use. Could you see why I wanted to jump to the live interface? As I come back here, I'm like, oh, now does that make sense? You saw how it does the multiple availability zone, multiple read replicas for load balancing. It is priced similar to EC2, to where we just spun up an on-demand RDS database, right? But you can, if you know you're going to run this for a while, you can also purchase a reserved instance, which will be some upfront money, a year or 3-year committal, and then you'll get a cheaper price on that database on a day-to-day basis. Down below, we saw as well, you have the ability to do magnetic or traditional drives. That's the slowest but cheapest performance. Slowest, cheapest, you know what I mean. General solid-state disks, and then provision IOPS on solid-state disks to give yourself whatever level of performance you're needing from this database. Wow. So in about 10 minutes, you have seen what RDS is all about and what it looks like to spin up and configure an initial RDS instance. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.